Hi, this is Randy from Common Sense and Ramblings in America. This will be my ninth podcast. Today I'll be discussing Biden's basically personal vendetta against Trump and his attempt to erase all the accomplishments that Trump made during the last 4 years of his presidency. Um, his first day in office, Biden stopped the Keystone Pipeline. That was a big one right there, because during Trump's presidency, he made the United States basically self-sufficient from foreign countries from their production of oil. So we no longer needed to import oil from other countries, and it kind of gave us a leg up on these other countries. We weren't being held hostage. We didn't feel like we had to get involved in all kinds of crazy activities in other countries to protect our basically our rights, or not our rights, but to protect our interests over there in other countries. Because if there was a war and it affected the production of oil, it would affect our country and our ability to function, basically. So we no longer had that problem. He also stopped the production of the border wall, or construction of the border wall, and now in certain sections of the wall are being destroyed, or where there was gaps. The gaps are not being connected together, so people are just crossing the border. He also cut down on ICE individuals, so we no longer our ICE program is not being funded as adequately enough, and he's opened up the borders, so he's making it easier for illegal aliens or immigrants to come across the border, and it's basically overwhelming ICE and our border guards. So what's happening is the countries are dropping off all these immigrants, or minor immigrants, 15, 16, 13, 14, what have you, at the border, and we're having to house them, we're having to take care of them, and what have you. And it's taking away from our patrolling the borders. And now the drug cartels are crossing the border at will with their drugs. So we're going to start seeing a major influx in illegal drugs in this country. And because Biden is being more soft on China, our relationship with China, what's going on, and it started during the Trump presidency as well, so we can't just blame it on Biden, that China and Mexico, or should I say the Mexican cartels, have been working together. That's how the cartels are getting hold of all the fentanyl that's being used to lace the drugs, heroin, cocaine, what have you. And we're starting to have increased deaths from illegal drug use because the fentanyl is so strong, and there really isn't any antidote that you can give. The only thing you can really do is do emergent intubation until the drugs are worn off, because it shuts down the respiratory system completely. Narcan, a common antidote for a lot of narcotics, will not work on fentanyl. So he's also, and he did a speech just the other day, discussing what he's done, what Biden's done in this country in the last 50 days or 45 days, what have you. And he's basically trying to take credit for the vaccine for COVID. And we all know, or where basically anybody who's been paying attention to the news knows, that the vaccines were created under the presidency of Trump. He did this in less than a year, and all the vaccines that are being administered right now were produced or set up through the Trump presidency. So that's basically a farce. I guess Biden forgot that he got the vaccine along with Kamala Harris before he even came into office. So I don't know how he was responsible for the vaccines. So that's another way he's trying to erase the Trump legacy. By probably one of the biggest accomplishments he had was his program on the COVID virus and his vaccine production plans. So under he had multiple plans. His Operation Warp Speed for the vaccine production, which was so successful. We basically had three companies that had vaccines that were being rolled out or already being administered by the time Biden took over the office of President of the United States. When the COVID pandemic started in 2020, the United States was woefully unprepared. Under the Obama administration, pretty much all the supplies had been used up for previous epidemics, and nothing had been replaced. We had a shortage of ventilators back on stock. China had basically purchased all the masks that were available throughout the world. So we had to go into major overdrive. And with the policies and programs that were set up under the president's administration, we were able to get caught up pretty quickly and actually started exporting ventilators. So all this has been totally ignored by Biden. Pretty impressive, I would think. One of the first things he did in office as well is he canceled the 1776 Commission, which was a commission set up so that schools would teach young kids about our history and not allow it to be canceled, which is what's going on in our country today. The children are being taught in the 1669 program, where they're being taught about slavery as the driving force behind this country. And anybody that's read or studied history, American history, knows that's not the case. But now we don't have that commission anymore. So that was another way that Biden was trying to erase Trump. The DACA reform that Trump was trying to set up, which was being blocked by Congress, was an attempt to basically the children that came across the border illegally were and no longer had access to anybody, family members back in Mexico or other countries, were being required every year to file paperwork and so that they could stay in the United States. And what Trump was trying to do was trying to get a program for these children, or now teenagers or young adults, so they didn't have to do that anymore, that they would have a more permanent solution. But so Biden went in and he erased all the changes that Trump had tried to make or had made, and we're back in the situation where every year they have to go ahead and file the paperwork, and it's back as business as usual, as if we were still under the Obama administration. Obamacare is all the changes that Trump tried to make in Obamacare to give more options to to people has been changed and reverted back to pre-Trump or under Obama administration. I'm not sure about the penalties yet. I didn't have a chance to check on that, but that was something that was pretty onerous under the Obama administration. If you couldn't afford to buy and get insurance, or you were self-employed, you got penalized. You got charged for not having insurance. So that's kind of silly. You couldn't afford insurance, but now you can afford to pay the penalty for not having insurance. Didn't make a whole lot of sense. And also, it was costing the businesses more money because it was limiting the choices they had. There was a lot more regulations, and apparently those regulations have been put back in place. So we're going to only see insurances go up. He got rid of the mandates that Trump had set up to reduce the price of medications for people in the United States. The drug companies had been charging exorbitant amounts of money to American citizens, while other countries and citizens were paying a lot less. That was one of the first things he did. So now people are paying tons of money for insulin and EpiPens and all this other stuff that should be cheaper. It really doesn't cost a lot to produce because they've been out for decades, and they don't have to. There's multiple companies making these drugs, and the cost is reduced. They don't have to do any research. But now the drug companies are now making money hand over fist again, and all these extremely expensive drugs. Should I say the prices have been increased again? So he's also had us rejoin WHO. And instead of negotiating a cheaper contract, we're back to what we were paying hundreds of millions of dollars every year. We basically are paying a good portion of the WHO budget by ourselves, while China enjoys most of the benefits with a lot less money because they're put under the limit that they're a developing nation. And really, China is not a developing nation. They're fully developed. They're going to probably end up being the number one production country in the world above the United States if this keeps up with what Biden is doing. So we also are rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. And Russia and China are basically the biggest abusers, or as far as emissions for carbon dioxide in the environment, and polluters, and yet they're not being held accountable. And the United States is one of the cleanest nations in the world, and we're going to be held to higher standards, so we're going to be paying more money, and we're going to be losing jobs throughout the country. So another thing is that Biden stated that Trump was a risk to our national security. So what usually what happens is when a president leaves office, he is given as needed briefings for security. So say if he wants to make a trip to another country, whatever, he now knows if there's going to be any terrorist activities going on over there, or how he can better protect himself. Because basically he has a Secret Service that's involved in this, so they're not going to have any access to that information, so they can better protect Trump when he does missions, or should I say, or trips to other countries. They're quoting that they're saying that he is a high risk and cannot be trusted. So there's a lot of things that Biden is doing, and a lot of it just seems to be in spite. And I'm not sure how much is coming from Biden himself, or from Kamala Harris, or Pelosi, or whoever else is pulling the strings in our government now. So this about wraps up my podcast for today. I just want people to think of what's going on when you hear about the negative comments and things that are being said about Trump. Take him with a grain of salt. He had a lot of good things that he accomplished when he was president, and our country was becoming more proud again. We were accomplishing a lot of great things, and we're becoming. If it wouldn't have been for the pandemic with COVID, Biden would have never stood a chance. And it's been touted by many people as the greatest gift that God gave Biden so he could win the election. And there was no way he would have won, because our economy was roaring and the things we were accomplishing were really incredible. So, guys, just letting everybody know, just take it easy, be safe, and the best thing you can do is just don't give up. Don't let this cancel culture cancel you. Refuse it, okay? And use your mind, use your brain. Don't just take the word from other people. Investigate things for yourself. Everybody has an agenda, and if you follow the money, you'll find out the answer. So be safe. You have a great day, and thanks for listening.